So now let me go to the next one, that is the telephony security assessment. So basically, telephone security assessment helps in accessing security issues related to corporate voice technologies. So telephony includes all your voice technologies, right? So these security threats can be from number one, your numerous modem vulnerabilities, such as authorized and unauthorized use of modems. For example, I got familiar with war dialing, so this will be a good place to mention that. So war dialing could allow like malicious users to uncover any modems and to gain access to them. Also, your voice over IP, which is common these days, most of the organizations are using some kind of a VoIP solution. So that is also a security threat when it comes down to your VoIP integration. You should know exactly what you're doing down there. Another is your mailbox deployment and security. The fourth point could be your abuse of your PBX by outsiders, like such as your router calls are targeted towards making some expensive, transactions which you are not making. Another one could be your mailbox deployments and security, and voice over IP integrations, unauthorized modem use and associated risks. So all of these are kind of fall under your telephony security assessment, which is basically your corporation organization's voice technologies. And I mentioned your it could be your modems, it could be your voice over IP, your VoIP stuff, it could be PBX, it could be your mailboxes, everything. All of them, they come under your telephony security assessment. All right. Next up is social engineering. So we've talked about social engineering, and you all must be pretty curious by now that what exactly is social engineering? How can somebody kind of penetrate a system just by doing social engineering, right? Let me explain that to you. So social engineering is the use of your influence and persuasion to basically mislead people for a purpose of commonly gathering information, right? So it is often referred to as people hijacking. It's very common actually. So social engineers use basically a psychological method. They use psychological, you can say, tricks on a target and gain access to sensitive information, such as it could be contact address, it could be password information, it could be usernames. It could also result in getting access to your credit card details. So usually the human tendency to help and trust can be exploited in many ways to collect information. This is what social engineering applies. You have to be aware, and you have to be always, I would say, ready for this kind of a practice when you're doing penetration testing, right? So it depends on the environment or circumstances whether social engineering is computer-based or conducted through direct contact. So as a penetration tester, even as a citizen employee of your organization, you have to be very careful when sharing any kind of information, I would say any information about your company, to members who are not part of your organization, team, or company, or who do not have that clearance, what they're trying to access or get information about. All public information, of course, just point them to, hey, go to the blog, go to our site's about us section, whatever you want to know. I don't remember it by heart. It's better to play that I don't have the knowledge card at that stage than trying to be that, oh, I know everything and I'll help you out. That doesn't work, especially when you're at a sensitive position, and especially when you know that there's all these different people trying to get information somehow. So you should be aware about social engineering. Okay, let me give you a little bit more examples so you understand this concept better. So the information, any information, right, could be used. You can use any information from anywhere. So like it could be trash, or it could be from your sweeper. So if you tear down something, you throw it in the trash. So some social engineering tricks are false telephone calls, or email hoax, or phishing attacks. They basically do. So for example, social engineers can pose as temporary employees, or even your cleaning crew, and walk around looking at notes stuck to your monitors. Other technique could be giving a bogus call, saying a survey in a mailbox, and offering some kind of a cash reward or some kind of a reward, and asking some seemingly incorrect questions that could reveal personal information, right? So you have to always have your guard up against these kind of things. You have to watch your surroundings, see what's going on, who are the people coming in and out, right? So the most popular means of social engineering is human-based. So people may have been conducting or extremely, like whenever you see something suspicious, you have to keep an eye out for it, right? They correlate, people who correlate certain behaviors and appearances of other people. A good social engineer will perform background research on a company to get idea of its basic nature. So if I'm a social engineer and I want to do some kind of a social engineering penetration testing, I'll start with doing a background research and basic nature, and I'll obtain some information about names of the key employees, such as who is the head of this department and who are the people who are working under him. So usually all this information helps them bypass controls and also gain access to different organization information, and of course steal important information. So you have to be always be on the guard up. You have to always be sure that people who you're talking to or giving information to or sharing information to, or people who are walking around in your environment are the right people with the right access, or their security badges are visible. And also you should know that if not to write sensitive information and stick on your computer as, oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow, or my password is XYZ, and you stick it on your computer screen. Never do that, right? And password could be any important information. Oh, the file share is this. No file share, nothing. Don't put any sticky notes unless it is just a reminder on something which nobody can make sense. It could be, oh, meeting in 10 minutes, that's fine, but nothing else which is sensitive to nature of your company. All right, so now you know about social engineering. So we also know that the most popular means of social engineering is human-based, right? So a good social engineer will perform a lot of things, while doing, and they would try to attack you from different levels. So you have to always have your guard up, and protecting sensitive information is something which you need to do. And if you, as a penetration tester, are performing a social engineering kind of penetration testing technique, you have to be also aware from the other side that what all you need to know. So these are some of the key things that you have to know. You have to first do your background checks, you do your background information checks, make sure that who are the employees, who are the people, key people, find vulnerabilities, and try to go from that side as a good penetration tester. All right, so trying to gain the confidence of a trusted source by revealing natural helpfulness is, as I said, is the weakness of everybody, right? So appearing as trying to get some kind of authority and eavesdropping are natural techniques, So you have to be careful about all of these. So next is the quality of penetration test. So the quality of penetration test is directly, I would say, proportional to the kind of expertise that a penetration testing agency has. Simple. So what is the quality of a penetration test? It directly is proportionate to that kind of thing. So any penetration testing task that is successfully done only or can be only done if it is conducted by a qualified penetration tester and who has enough skills to perform the test. So for example, a penetration test of a corporate network may be to examine numerous different hosts with a number of different operating systems. It could be you're also doing your network architecture. You also engage in the policies and the procedures, right? So it is of the utmost importance to explain the requirements clearly to the penetration testing firm, so that a good quality of penetration test is directly done, right? So the consultant should know all the information, all right? So basically a penetration tester should be well versed. They should have a good knowledge in the target organization's policies, procedures, so that the testers will not upset or will not cross any boundaries of the rules and procedures that may affect the client. So you have to have a good knowledge about the organization. Of course, the one thing to remember is that there is no benchmarks to label an individual as a skilled penetration tester, because you cannot do that. So it is the duty of a good penetration tester to examine the various setups of a network, the architectures of the network, and the various connections in which they are involved in. And all these tasks, they require continued exposure to such environments and extensive learning. So that is how a good consultant or a penetration tester comes up, right? So this is very important. So you have to have those traits inbuilt within you while performing a penetration test within an organization, right? So I would say a professional penetration tester should possess some of the skills, like you should be well versed with hardware concepts, like your networking concepts, such as your TCP/IP and cabling techniques and routers. You should also be aware of different firewalls. How do they perform? What are the different kinds of firewalls, their vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and strength points, right? And second most important thing, I would say, you should be proficient in software concepts, like your ethical hacking techniques. You should be able to, what does that mean? Okay, so it means you should be able to do exploits. You should know how to use your hacking tools. All this you should be well versed with. Important, every organization backbone is always a database. So you should have good database knowledge. It could be for your Oracle database, your MS Microsoft SQL Server. It could be any open source technology databases which they are using. Could be like your MySQL. Also, operating system knowledge is very important. You should have knowledge about different operating systems, Windows, Linux, Mac, and so forth, right? You should also have knowledge about applications, such as your wireless protocols and devices, your Bluetooth, your wide area programming networks, or WAPs, you know. You should also have a wireless, your web server. You should know what web servers are, what are different web servers out there. You should know about mail servers, SNMP stations. You should also know about access devices. Another thing you should possess is the knowledge for telecommunications devices and skills, like your broadband. What does a broadband consist of? Your ISDN, your ATM and VoIP. You should have, of course, troubleshooting skills in all of these technologies also. Another key skill set which I think is basically the knowledge of your applications, you know, your wireless protocol and devices. Those are, as I said, you know, these are some of the key things which will get you closer to your goals. So this knowledge always, of course, with every organization where you're trying to do a penetration testing, or where you're trying to do some kind of a penetration testing for a particular task, you have to know that what are their limitations, or they are Windows based, they're Linux based. So you have to have different knowledge of different operating systems, different softwares, different diagnostic tools. So those help you as a penetration tester, and those make you a better penetration tester. So remember this is very key. All right. Okay guys, so this brings us to the end of class 2. Well, I had divided this into 2 parts. So we started with your blue team and red teaming, what those are, key differences. Of course, then I went into different types of penetration testing. Then I walked you through the strategies of penetration testing. Then we also talked about the external penetration testing and the internal security assessment. Next was part 2. That was this part. I also got you familiar with the application security assessment, the type of application security assessment, and then you went over network security assessment, and finally the wireless access assessment, the telephony security assessment. I also got you familiar with social engineering. Remember this term. And we wrapped up basically by going over your penetration testing, like as a penetration tester consultant, what skills you need, what skill set you should have, and what is more important for you to up or to get a good standing as a penetration tester. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. I will see you in the next class. Until then, goodbye.